The night was colder than most nights in Whiskey Moon Country. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, brushing past the bright whiskey-colored moon that gave the land its name. It washed the ranch in a pale gold shine, touching fences, empty horse troughs, and the lonely silhouette of the barn standing against the desert horizon. Calder Hayes had just tucked 7-year-old Mira into bed when he heard a thud, small, sharp, and not the kind that belonged to the wind. Years of ranch life had trained his ears to know when something didn't fit the natural rhythm of the night. And this sound didn't. He stepped outside, lantern in hand, boots crunching softly against the frozen soil. The air was quiet except for the distant hoot of an owl. Something felt wrong, yet familiar, the same gut feeling he had the day Mira was born and he realized he'd be raising her alone. Life had a strange way of warning him before dropping change at his doorstep. He followed the sound toward the barn, his fingers resting near the handle of his revolver, not out of fear, just caution. Coyotes, thieves, drifters, the land didn't care who showed up at your door. But he wasn't prepared for what he saw. A girl, young, bruised, trembling, collapsed against the barn door, clutching her side. Her breathing was shallow, like each breath cost her more strength than she had. Dirt streaked her face, her hair was tangled and sunburnt, and her clothes were torn from thorns and rough travel. She looked like she had run for miles, or days. Calder lowered the lantern closer, the warm glow lighting her face. She flinched weakly at the brightness but didn't open her eyes. "Hey," he said gently, crouching to her level. "You hear me?" A ghost of a nod. "Barely." "Who hurt you?" he asked, not expecting an answer. Her cracked lips parted. "Please, don't let them take me." Her voice was nothing more than a broken whisper. Calder's heart tightened. He didn't know who they were, but he knew one thing: no one was taking anything from his ranch, especially not someone this fragile. He lifted her softly, careful of her injuries. She was lighter than Mira when she was 5, too light. Either she hadn't eaten properly or she had been running for far too long. Inside the barn, he laid her on a pile of hay softened with an old horse blanket. The scent of hay, leather, and dust filled the warm, closed-in space. His lantern cast an amber glow over her face, revealing a mixture of youth and hardship that shouldn't belong together. When he reached for her arm to check for bleeding, she weakly tried to pull away. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said, voice steady and soft. "But you need help." She blinked slowly, eyes full of exhaustion and disbelief. "Why, would you help me?" Calder exhaled, staring at her for a long moment. Because once, someone had helped him keep going too, right after Myra's mother died. A neighbor lady had stepped in with warm food and warmer words. He had never forgotten kindness, even in pain. "'Cause you're on my land," he finally answered. "And you're hurt. That's reason enough." She didn't reply, but the tension left her shoulders just a little. He cleaned the cut on her side carefully, noticing old bruises, shades of purple fading to yellow, too many for one person. Marks that told stories she hadn't spoken yet. When he wrapped a bandage around her ribs, she winced but didn't pull away this time. "What's your name?" Calder asked. The answer came after a long pause. "Lila." "All right, Lila." He stood, brushing hay off his hands. "You'll stay here tonight. In the morning, we'll see what needs doing." Her lips trembled. Not from pain. From fear. "They'll find me," she whispered. "They always do." Calder looked at her with the same solid calm he showed horses when storms came rolling across the plains. "Not here," he said simply. "Not on his ranch. Not near his daughter. Not under his roof." He wasn't sure what danger she was running from, but he already knew, deep in his bones, that he was going to keep her safe. It wasn't a decision he made. It was instinct, shaped by loss, fatherhood, and the loneliness he carried like a hidden scar. As he walked back toward the house, he saw the curtain shift in Myra's room. She had woken and watched everything quietly. Her small face, round with sleep, peeked out the window. "Papa?" she whispered as he reached the porch. "Who was that girl?" Calder hesitated. "Someone who needs help." Myra's sleepy eyes softened. "Is she alone?" He swallowed. "Yeah." Mira looked toward the barn, then back at her father. "Then she can stay," she said simply, with the kind of innocent compassion only children have. Calder felt something he hadn't felt in years, a small, flickering warmth inside his chest. Maybe this girl collapsing at his barn door was no accident. Maybe fate had brought her here. Maybe life was giving them a new start, under the same whiskey moon that had watched over their sorrows for so long. Tonight, something had changed at Whiskey Moon Ranch, quietly, softly, like a new seed buried in cold earth, waiting for a chance to bloom. Morning sunlight slipped across the ranch like a gentle hand brushing away the cold night. Calder was already outside, feeding the horses, when Mira came bouncing out of the house with her hair in uneven braids and sleep still clinging to her eyes. "Papa," she said, tugging his sleeve. "Can I see her now?" Calder hesitated. Lila was still a stranger, a wounded, frightened one at that. But he trusted Myra's heart more than anything. If anyone could make the girl feel safe, it was his daughter. "All right," he said. "But be gentle. She's been through a lot." Mira nodded with surprising seriousness for a 7-year-old. Together, they walked to the barn. Inside, Lila was awake, sitting up slowly as if every movement was a battle. Her eyes darted toward them, guarded but curious. She looked like a wild animal that wanted to trust but didn't remember how. Mira stopped a few steps away. "Hi," she whispered. Lila blinked. "Hi. I'm Mira. Papa said your name is Lila." "That's right. You hungry?" The question was so innocent, so matter-of-fact, it made Lila's eyes water before she could stop herself. She nodded. Calder raised the small basket he'd brought, biscuits, warm stew in a tin jar, and water. "Eat slowly," he said. "You've gone without for too long." Lila didn't argue. She ate quietly, hands trembling a little. Mira sat cross-legged near her, watching with the kind of silent concern that came naturally to children who had lost something in their life too. Mira had lost a mother she never got to know. "Do you live here?" Lila asked Mira between bites. Mira said proudly. "Just me and Papa. And our horses. And sometimes coyote noises." Lila gave a small smile. "The first one." Mira scooted a little closer. "You can stay with us." Calder opened his mouth to correct her, but Lila spoke first, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can." "Why not?" Myra's frown was instant, protective. Lila looked down at her hands, scraped knuckles, old scars. "People are looking for me." He expected Mira to look scared. But she just shrugged softly. "So. Papa's not scared of people." Calder made a quiet sound. "Mira, what?" she said innocently. "You're not." Lila watched the exchange with wary eyes, as if seeing something unfamiliar, a family that talked with warmth, not fear. Calder sat on a wooden crate, studying Lila carefully. "You want to tell me who's looking for you?" Her eyes hardened, walls snapping up again. No, the refusal wasn't rude, it was terrified. "That's fine," Calder said, surprising her. "You can tell me when you're ready. Or not at all." Lila stared at him like she didn't understand the rules he lived by. In her world, kindness came with conditions. In his, it didn't. Mira leaned closer to Lila and whispered loudly, "He's nice even when he's mad." "I heard that," Calder muttered. Mira grinned. Lila's smile returned, faint but real. Then the moment broke, hoofbeats sounded outside. Loud, heavy, fast. Calder's breath tightened. Only two kinds of men rode that fast, trouble or travelers. He stood quickly. Stay here, he told the girls. Lila froze, color draining from her face. It's them. Calder's hand moved to his gun instinctively. You sure? Her eyes were full of panic. I know those horses. He didn't waste a second. He shut the barn doors gently but firmly. Mira, he said, voice calm but firm. Stay with Lila. Don't come out. Mira nodded, grabbing Lila's hand without hesitation. Calder stepped outside. 3 riders approached, dust rising behind them like a warning. Their faces were hidden by scarves, hats pulled low. One lifted his chin as he slowed his horse. Mornin', rancher, the man called. We're lookin' for someone. Calder's jaw tightened. Ain't seen anyone but my daughter. You sure? Another rider spoke, voice edged with danger. Girl about 16. Runs real fast. Talks real little. Calder didn't flinch. You're on private land. That a yes or no to our question? The man asked. Calder stepped forward, posture relaxed but ready. I said I haven't seen anyone. And I ain't lying. A tense silence followed. The riders exchanged glances, trying to read him. Finally, the first one smirked. If you do see her, tell her we're comin'. And she won't make it far this time. They turned their horses and rode off, dust swallowing their silhouettes. Calder waited until the hoofbeats faded completely before returning to the barn. When he opened the door, Lila was crouched behind a hay bale, clutching Mira protectively as if she expected the worst. It's all right, Calder said softly. They're gone. But Lila didn't relax. Her body stayed rigid, mind stuck in survival mode. They won't stop, she whispered. They'll come back. Calder walked closer. Slowly. Carefully. Then they'll find out they came to the wrong ranch. Lila's eyes snapped up to him. Why? She demanded. Why are you helping me? Calder didn't look away. Because no one should face fear alone. Not when I can do something about it. Mira wrapped her small arms around Lila. See? I told you. You're safe here. For the first time, Lila's guard cracked fully, her chin trembled, and tears fell silently onto Myra's hair. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. Calder understood. A bond was forming, soft, fragile, but real. And none of them knew it yet, but this was only the beginning of how deeply she would change their lives. The days that followed passed gently, like soft wind brushing through wheat fields. But inside the walls of Whiskey Moon Ranch, something new had begun, quiet, careful, and warm. Lila stayed in the barn at first, too afraid to sleep inside the house. Calder didn't push her. She could see the house from the barn door, feel the warmth of its lantern glow at night, hear Myra's giggles drifting out the windows, but she stayed where she felt safest. By the 3rd morning, she was strong enough to stand on her own, though her ribs still ached and her legs trembled occasionally. Calder caught her trying to lift a bucket of feed. Easy, he said, touching the handle before she could strain herself. You don't need to work. Lila stiffened, as if the idea of resting was somehow wrong. I'm not staying here for free. Calder raised an eyebrow. You're injured. So? She muttered. He studied her, this girl who had learned somewhere in life that kindness had a price, that safety had to be earned by labor or silence. Well, Calder said slowly, you can help Mira with the chickens. They listen better to children anyway. Mira, standing behind her father with a lopsided grin, bounced in excitement. They poop a lot. Don't step in it. Lila blinked, surprised into a small laugh. Calder felt a strange warmth bloom in his chest at the sound. She had lived so long in fear that laughter felt foreign on her tongue. She worked with Mira that morning, slow, careful steps in the dusty chicken coop, gentle hands lifting eggs into a basket, soft patience listening to Mira ramble about horses and stars and how her papa could fix anything, even broken hearts. Like yours, Mira added casually. Lila froze. What do you mean, broken? Mira shrugged. People who cry without tears have a broken heart. Lila didn't respond. She couldn't. Myra's simple truth cut deeper than any scar she carried. Later that afternoon, Calder repaired a broken fence post while Lila sat nearby, sorting old nails into a box. The quiet between them wasn't tense anymore. It was peaceful. You've got a steady hand, Calder said. Lila shrugged, not looking up. Had to learn. My father used to fix wagon wheels. I watched him. Calder nodded. She rarely mentioned her past, never names, never details, so he didn't press. But every small piece she offered felt like treasure. Did you run away from him? He asked softly. She hesitated for a long time. He died, she murmured. Years ago. Calder lowered his hammer. I'm sorry. She swallowed hard, eyes focused on the nails. After that, I ended up with people who weren't kind. They didn't treat girls like me as humans. More like tools. Something to use. Her voice wavered. You don't have to tell me more, Calder said firmly, calm but warm. Lila let out a slow breath, relieved. People think running away makes you free, she whispered. It doesn't. It just makes you hunted. Calder leaned back against the fence. Not here. Not anymore. Her eyes flicked toward him, wide and searching. You really think they'll stop? I think, he said, they'll find out I ain't someone they want to cross. Lila stared at him as if trying to understand what made a man like him exist, gentle and strong, protective without aggression, calm without fear. That evening, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of oncoming rain. Mira insisted Lila come inside the house because storms make the barn too lonely. Lila hesitated at the doorstep, one foot on the wooden porch, the other still on the dirt, torn between old fear and new hope. Calder opened the door wider. It's warm inside. Lila hugged her arms around her ribs. I don't know if I should. Calder's voice softened. It's just a house, Lila. Nothing in there can hurt you. Her throat tightened. It wasn't the house she feared. It was belonging. Stepping inside meant stepping toward something she wasn't sure she deserved. Mira grabbed her hand and tugged lightly. Come on. I made space for you at the table. And that was it, the small tug from a small girl who accepted her without question. Lila stepped inside. The warmth of the home hit her immediately, the smell of stew, the soft crackle of the fireplace, the simple comfort of things placed with love, not luxury. The house felt lived in, safe, gentle. Calder handed her a bowl. She held it as if it might disappear. You're welcome here, he said quietly. The storm outside rolled in with rumbling thunder. Lila flinched, but Mira grabbed her sleeve. Sit next to me. She did. They ate in silence except for the storm and Myra's small humming. Lila watched father and daughter share looks, smiles, soft jokes. It felt like watching a type of love she had only seen from a distance. Papa tells stories on storm nights, Mira said suddenly. Wanna hear one? Lila glanced at Calder. You don't have to. He smiled gently, an expression that always seemed to carry a quiet sadness beneath it. Don't mind telling one more. He told a tale about the land before fences, when the nights were full of wild horses and the sky was so open it felt like a giant secret. Mira fell asleep halfway through, head on Lila's shoulder. Lila froze, unsure what to do with the small warm weight leaning on her. Calder stepped forward to take Mira gently, but Lila whispered, I've got her. It's okay. Their eyes met, Calder's gaze softening, Lila's guarded heart slowly opening. When he carried Mira to bed later, Lila remained by the fire, staring into the flames. Calder returned quietly, leaning on the doorway. You're doing good with her, he said softly. Lila wrapped her arms around herself. She shouldn't get attached. I won't be here long. Calder stepped closer. She's already attached. Lila closed her eyes. That's what scares me. Why? Because I don't know how to stay anywhere. Calder took a deep breath. Then learn here. We got room for you. Her voice cracked. What if my past ruins this place? What if they come back? Calder met her fear with calm certainty. Then they'll find a man waiting who doesn't let fear decide his life. Lila's eyes filled with tears, silent, trembling, unfamiliar. In that moment, something changed inside her. She wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was becoming part of them. And though danger still loomed somewhere beyond the horizon, for the first time in years, Lila felt like she might belong. For a while, life at Whiskey Moon Ranch settled into a quiet rhythm, soft mornings, steady afternoons, peaceful evenings. Lila was no longer the frightened girl who hid in shadows. She rose at dawn to help Mira feed the animals, brushed the horses with gentle hands, and learned how to laugh, small at first, then growing like sunlight warming cold soil. Calder watched her from a distance, always careful not to push. She wasn't ready to talk about her past, but she didn't hide from the present anymore. And that was enough for him. But peace, like the desert wind, never stayed forever. The day everything changed, the trouble arrived on a quiet afternoon. Calder was mending reins on the porch. Mira was drawing wildflowers in the dirt with a stick. Lila was inside, folding blankets, humming a song she barely remembered from childhood. Then, hoofbeats. Fast. Determined. Heavy. Not travelers. Not neighbors. Myra's head snapped up. Papa? Calder stood slowly, eyes narrowing. Go inside, Mira. Now. She obeyed instantly, the tone in his voice was one she'd heard only twice in her life. Lila appeared in the doorway, froze, and went white. Her breath stopped. Her fingers trembled. It's them, she whispered. I knew they'd come. Calder stepped in front of her, voice steady. Stay with Mira. But Lila grabbed his sleeve. They're dangerous, Calder. You don't, her voice cracked. They won't stop. Calder placed a hand over hers, warm, steady, grounding. They came to the wrong ranch. 3 riders galloped into view, dust rising behind them like a storm. They dismounted, boots hitting the ground with purpose. The leader, broad shoulders, scar across his chin, cruel eyes, stepped forward. Well, he sneered. Looks like she ran farther than we thought. Calder's face was calm, unreadable. You're trespassing. The man tilted his head. We're looking for a girl. Ours. Calder's jaw tightened. She doesn't belong to anyone. She does to us, the man spat. She stole from us. Ran from us. Belongs in chains. Lila flinched at the word. Chains. Memories slammed into her, dark rooms, harsh hands, forced labor, whispered threats. She had been taken in by this group after her father died, promised shelter but given control. She never stole from them, she stole back her freedom. Calder stepped between them and the house. You're mistaken, he said. No one here belongs to you. The man smirked. Move aside, rancher. We ain't here for trouble we don't need. You won't get past me. A tense silence fell. Wind swept dust between their boots. A hawk circled overhead. The whiskey-colored sun burned low. The leader spat. Fine. Have it your way. His men reached for their guns, and before anyone could draw, a small voice broke through the tension. Stop. Mira stood at the doorway, little chest rising fast, hands balled into fists. Lila instantly stepped in front of her, shielding her with her own body. No, Calder's voice cut through steel. Mira, go inside. But Mira didn't move. Her voice shook, but her courage didn't. You can't take her, she cried. She's ours. The outlaw leader blinked, stunned by the tiny fury. Yours? Lila crouched, pulling Mira back gently. Sweetheart, no. Mira insisted, tears filling her eyes. You're my family. The words hit Lila harder than any wound she'd suffered. Family. A word she never thought she'd hear again. A word she never thought she deserved. Calder stepped forward, voice low but thunder-strong. You heard her, he said. She stays. The outlaw leader's smirk faded. Something darker replaced it. You're making a mistake, Hayes. Calder didn't blink. Maybe. But it's mine to make. The man nodded slowly. Then you're standing between us and what's ours. Calder's voice chilled. She's not yours. And she sure as hell ain't yours neither, the outlaw snapped. Calder lifted his chin, eyes burning with quiet fire. She's under my roof. On my land. Under my protection. That's all that matters. The outlaw leader drew his gun, but Lila stepped forward. Not Calder. Not Mira. Lila. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. I'm not going back with you. The outlaw scoffed. Girl, no, her voice sharpened. I'm not your tool. I'm not your property. I'm not scared of you anymore. She shook her head slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks, not from fear, but from release. I belong here. Calder's breath hitched. Mira grabbed Lila's skirt, proud and fierce. The outlaw stepped forward. You think this man can protect you? Lila looked at Calder, steady, calm, unwavering. Yes. Something in her certainty rattled the outlaw leader. He holstered his gun with a hard click. This ain't over, he growled. She's gonna answer for what she did. Calder stood tall. Bring the sheriff. Bring proof. Bring your lies. We'll see what stands. The outlaw glared. His men mounted their horses. You just made yourself an enemy, rancher. Calder's voice was calm as stone. You don't scare me. They rode off, dust swallowing them whole. The aftermath when they disappeared, Lila's legs gave out. She sank to the dirt, shaking. Calder knelt beside her, hands gentle but firm on her shoulders. It's over, he murmured. You're safe. Only for now, she whispered. They'll come back. Worse than before. Calder shook his head. Let them try. Lila buried her face in her hands. I didn't want you to get involved. I didn't want to ruin your life. He touched her hands, lifting them gently away from her face. You saved my life, Lila. She stared at him, confused. You brought my daughter joy she hasn't had in years. You brought light back to this house. You brought something I thought I'd lost forever. Her voice trembled. What? Hope. Tears spilled freely now, hot, overwhelming, healing. Mira threw her arms around Lila's waist. Don't leave. Please don't leave. Lila hugged her back tightly, forehead pressed to the child's hair. I'm not leaving. She looked up at Calder. Not unless you tell me to. Calder's answer was instant. I won't. Under the whiskey moon that night, they sat outside together, Calder, Lila, and Mira, wrapped in a blanket against the cooling desert air. The moon rose high, glowing gold like a lantern watching over them. Lila leaned her head on Calder's shoulder. He didn't move at first, afraid she'd pull away. But she didn't. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. Calder exhaled softly. You don't owe me thanks. She looked at Mira sleeping beside them, small hand curled around Lila's fingers. I owe you my life. He shook his head. You owe me nothing. You being here, it's enough. Lila's voice softened to a trembling whisper. So I can stay. Calder turned toward her, a slow, warm look that seemed to hold years of unspoken emotion. You already have. Lila wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I didn't think I could ever belong anywhere again. You belong here, Calder said gently. With us. With my daughter. With me. The words settled between them, soft, powerful, undeniable. Mira shifted in her sleep, murmuring, family. The whiskey moon glowed brighter, as if blessing the moment. Lila took Calder's hand. For the first time in years, she wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't afraid. She was home. At Whiskey Moon Ranch, where broken hearts healed, strangers became family, and love found its way back under the open desert sky.